too much of UFOs can actually get you killed. This is the story of Dr. Albert.K.Bender. Welcome. One of the earliest, and certainly the most infamous, of Earth's reported Men in Black incidents occurred in bustling Bridgeport. According to ufologists, Men in Black, popularly identified as MIB, are ultra-secret agents associated with the FBI, CIA, or an unnamed covert federal department which seek out and thwart those individuals probing too close to the truth behind UFOs. Some ufologists alarmingly postulate that the MIB are actually not of this earth. According to Bender, MIB arrived in Bridgeport during 1953. They appeared at his Broad Street home, just a few hundred yards from the main library. Albert was employed as chief timekeeper at Acme Shear Company, the world's largest manufacturer of scissors. The factory was located across the Pequannock River from downtown at Hicks and Knowlton Streets. Perhaps it was Bender's sense of humor, but in an ironic salute to his job, Bender filled his living space with an assortment of 20 chiming clocks. Every 15 minutes, half hour and on the hour, 784 Broad Street resounded with the din of bells, bells, bells. But the cacophony of ticking timepieces and alarms were merely a small part of Bender's eccentricities. The timekeeper enjoyed his privacy living in the attic and its small connected den of his stepfather's 3-story Broad Street home. At some point when Bender entered his late 20s, Albert adorned his realm with a collection of monstrosities. Faux skulls, shrunken heads, and his own original, outsider art. Should friends stop over, Albert made sure to complement the atmosphere with unnerving sound effects featuring thunder, sobbing and hissing noises on his record player. Enamored with ghost stories and horror movies, the terror connoisseur claimed his blood flowed with ancestral witchcraft. Fittingly, Bender dubbed this attic room his Chamber of Horrors. Albert's unique appreciation for the supernatural coincided with a rash of well-publicized flying saucer sightings in the American West during the late 1940s, prompting Bender to form one of America's nascent UFO organizations. In 1952, the Park City resident organized the International Flying Saucer Bureau. World War I flying ace and CEO of Eastern Airlines, Eddie Rickenbacker, became an honorary member. Albert Einstein declined the invitation. The Bureau's 600 worldwide members, with Bender as president, were dedicated to furthering the study of these mysterious craft.
In the year 1952, I organized a group called the International Flying Saucer Bureau, one of the first organizations to study UFO, and tried to diagnose the many stories that were appearing in the daily newspapers about sightings. The group expanded until we had branches all around the world. We published a quarterly called Space Review, which contained news of interest to all members about UFOs in general. During the month of July 1952, I was plagued by many strange incidents involving such things as mysterious phone calls to discontinue my study of the UFO problem. In July of the same year, when I returned from a summer vacation, I was visited by 3 men in black. They seemed to float off the floor but wore clothes similar to an earth clergyman. They frightened me half to death, since I did not know they were present until I got a strange prickly sensation on the back of my neck, as if I could feel someone staring at me. When I turned about, there they were, looking at me from the center of the room, with their strange glowing eyes. Their eyes seemed to penetrate my very soul, and I experienced a burning sensation, extreme pain above my right eye. They did not speak, but I could understand the message they were conveying to me. It definitely was telepathic, and here's the message. You have dedicated yourself to the solution of this strange problem of unidentified objects in your atmosphere. Your interest is deep and sincere, and you have devoted many hours to it. We also know that such interest and determination might lead to something that could bring you harm. We feel that you are a very good contact for us on your planet Earth. You are an average person, and we know that what we tell you and show you will not be believed by anyone you might tell. You are not a person of great renown on your planet, therefore we have nothing to fear at present. We have a purpose for being here, and we will be here for some time yet. We must not be disturbed in our ultimate goal. As you see us here, we are not in our natural form. We have found it necessary to take on the look of your people while we are here. This is mainly used as a means of returning here without being detected by anyone. We have made numerous contacts with Earth by means of craft from our base, and at present we have craft hidden at a remote spot on your planet. We have found it necessary to go to great extremes at times to frighten off your Earth people, and it has resulted in some deaths. We also found it necessary to carry off Earth people to use their bodies to disguise our own. We wish to keep in touch with you and tell you many things, because one day you will write about this, and we are certain that nobody will believe you, but you will be much wiser than anyone else on your planet. You will know what is out there in space, and you will know what the future holds for your mankind. You will see all three of us again. We will leave with you a small piece of metal similar to your coins. It is to be kept in a secret place of your own. We wish to have you come with us at a time to be announced to you soon. Thus was the gist of the message that was conveyed, and true to their promise, they did return to me.
In March, I decided to go away.
In Albert's Bridgeport home. One of the group's most enthusiastic members, Max Krengle, also worked as a timekeeper at Acme Shear. He served as IFSB vice president and assistant director. Krengle lived in Stratford. His home was in one of Lordship's new Cape Cod-style houses along Stratford Road, between Heartland Street and Airway Drive. Shortly after its founding, the IFSB reached out to members around the world through a quarterly journal, Space Review. The newsletter shared stories of UFO sightings and offered theories about the origins of these seemingly inexplicable objects. No sooner had Bender commenced the IFSB than odd occurrences plagued him in Bridgeport. Ill health, strange phone calls, and telepathic messages hounded the researcher. These events coincidentally mirrored an outbreak of UFO sightings over southern Connecticut. In addition, Albert felt as if he was being watched. November 1952, at a local movie theater, Bender realized a strange man with glowing eyes observing him, and while walking home along Main Street, Albert was shadowed. On a separate occasion late one night on Broad Street, Bender reported he was telepathically hypnotized and levitated. But the worst phenomenon was the sickening odor filling his attic. The stench of burning sulfur. Sequestered in his Broad Street home, Albert blended his UFO research with mental telepathy. To further his experiments, Bender prompted readers of Space Review with an audacious request: memorize and silently recite, on a particular day and time, a form letter penned by Bender. Albert's goal was to connect with alien life via the simultaneous thought projection of hundreds of IFSB members. World Contact Day, or as Bender and the IFSB officially preferred, C-Day, commenced at 6 o'clock in the evening Est on March 15, 1953. The noble telepathic message opened, calling occupants of interplanetary craft. Calling occupants of interplanetary craft that have been observing our planet Earth. We of IFSB wish to make contact with you. We are your friends. Bender's message did not go over well. His rooms continued to fill with the smell of sulfur, and he was telepathically ordered to cease delving into matters that were not his concern. A yellow mist gathered in the attic. Undeterred, Bender announced that the July issue of Space Review would hold a startling revelation. It never appeared in print. In July 1953, Albert Bender was visited at his home by 3 men. Bender stated, all of them were dressed in black clothes. They looked like clergymen but wore hats similar to the Homburg style. The notorious men in black, always in threes, made it clear to Bender that he was to immediately halt all UFO work. They communicated telepathically, stop publishing. Before departing, the MIB confiscated copies of Space Review and in their wake a yellow fog materialized in the upstairs rooms of 784 Broad Street. Again, the vile odor of sulfur wafted through the attic. Unnerved by their otherworldly presence, Albert shuddered that he was scared to death and was unable to eat for days. The 32-year-old timekeeper would be the recipient of repeated MIB visits. Not surprisingly, Bender's paranormal experiences were reported in local newspapers. What might seem borrowed from the plot of a late-night horror movie, Bender's odyssey can easily be retraced at one of his familiar haunts. The downtown Bridgeport Public Library. Bender prominently notes BPL in his autobiographical encounter with MIB, Flying Saucers and the 3 Men, London, England. Neville Spearman, 1962, that he conducted research into the paranormal at the main library. Bender's account of the threats from the men in black become evident when viewing old microfilmed pages of the Bridgeport Sunday Herald. One Herald article reported the story under the headline, Mystery Visitors Halt Research, Bridgeport Herald, November 29, 1953. Bender is quoted that 3 men in dark suits flashed credentials showing them to be representatives of a higher authority, and they asked numerous questions about the IFSB. The Herald reporter, Lem McCollum, interpreted these visitors as government officials. It was only years later, when the passage of time apparently lessened his anxiety, that Bender explained that the MIB were not of Earth. The telepathic messages, headaches, his being stalked, and of course the surreal warnings by authoritarians in black suits, compelled Albert to shut down the International Flying Saucer Bureau. A year and a half after founding the IFSB, the final issue of Space Review was released in October 1953. It included a cryptic message and warning: the mystery of the flying saucers is no longer a mystery. The source is already known, but any information about this is being withheld by orders from a higher source. We would like to print the full story in Space Review, but because of the nature of the information we have been advised in the negative. We advise those engaged in saucer work to be very cautious. In 1956, fellow IFSB member, Gray Barker penned the book, They Knew Too Much About Flying Saucers. In these pages, Barker detailed Albert's Bridgeport experiences and introduced the world to the evocatively menacing phrase, Men in Black. A decade after his own brush with aliens, Bender chronicled his strange personal story in a bizarre exposé entitled, Flying Saucers and the 3 Men. Albert stressed how the dark-suited visitors were mind-manipulating silencers. Abandoning his forays into the supernatural and UFO research, Albert Bender departed Bridgeport and relocated to California 3 years after publishing his autobiography. Albert Bender passed away, at the age of 94, on March 29, 2016. Sadly, the house at 784 Broad Street no longer stands. This home, where alien theorists believe beings from outer space made their presence known, needed to make room for a different sort of invasion. Urban renewal. Bender's home suddenly vanishes from the city. During 1967, the Southern Connecticut Gas Company's parking lot absorbed a swath of Broad Street, including the former backyard of the Chamber of Horrors. Bender's portal to the beyond was forever closed. Was it just a coincidence that the government bulldozed Bender's residence? For those conspiracy-minded readers, one could choose to suspend disbelief and mull over the possibility that this urban destruction was part of a vast government plot. It's fascinating to ponder, even from a sci-fi perspective, that all evidence of the MIB and Bender were eliminated from the Bridgeport streetscape. What, if anything, really transpired within the walls of 784 Broad Street? Could events be explained by Albert Bender's mental state? Was the Bridgeport resident hallucinating? Did the stress of managing an international organization and publishing the Space Review generate a sense of paranoia and trigger a nervous breakdown? Some might say Bender's experiments opened a door to an occult force. Others shudder at the thought of demons. Or, as ufologists avow, it really was aliens. Take your earthbound, or celestial, pick. Whether the MIB arrived from Washington, D.C., were born of Albert Bender's imagination or were transported here by alien science, one of paranormal history's most bizarre, worldwide, phenomena traces its origin directly to downtown Bridgeport. It would be appropriate to commemorate Bender's legacy with an historical folklore marker at the site of 784 Broad Street. To borrow, and retool, an observation made by the Nobel Prize-winning Danish physicist, Niels Bohr, anyone who is not shocked by what happened in Bridgeport has not understood what happened in Bridgeport. Of course, Bohr was commenting on quantum theory, but his words could readily apply to a different subject of scientific inquiry, namely, who, or rather, what, may have visited Bridgeport. Only Albert Bender knows. Unfortunately, Bender is no longer with us. Thanks for watching.